Okay, so for today, we are learning how to solve equations and inequalities. Okay, so there are two types that we are going to do. The first with equations and then with inequalities. Do you know the difference between equations and inequalities? How will you know if it's an equation and how will you know if it's an inequality? Like if you look at an expression, if I will give you say 2x plus 5 and then say with this, is this an equation or an inequality? Is this an equation or an inequality? Equation. How do you know that it is an equation? How will you know? Because you said it's equation. What made you decide that it is an equation? What if I give you something like this? So you said this one is what? Equation. And this one is inequality. How did you know? How did you know that this is an equation? What part of the expression is telling you that this is an equation?
Equal sign.
The equal sign. What about this one? Or what do you call that sign there? Greater than. What are the other inequality signs? Less than. Give me two more. No, equal is equation. What else aside from these two? I know two more. What are those symbols that signify inequality? There are two more. Any guess? Can you write on your paper? Maybe you're not sure about the term, but do you know the symbol? Okay, so we call that greater than or equal to. Okay, so it's a combination of greater than and equation, meaning a number. So say if I use a greater than or equal to b, it means a can be greater or maybe it's equal to b. In the same way, a less than or equal to b, meaning a can be less than or a can be equal to b. Okay, and that's the difference between the one without the equal sign and those with an equal sign, the combination. But again, going back to our question, how do we know if it's an equation? We basically look at the symbols. Okay, so this is an equation because of the equal sign, and this is an inequality because of the greater than sign. So if you will be given something like, what if I just write 2x plus 5? Is this an equation or an inequality? Do you find something strange here? Is this an equation? Let's go back to the conditions. Equations have equal sign. Inequality or inequalities have the greater, less than, greater than or equal, or less than or equal. Now I have here 2x plus 5. Is this an equation or an inequality? None? Yes, okay, you're correct. Because it doesn't have an equal sign, it doesn't have an inequality sign, so it's not even part of any of these two. Okay, so this is very important because sometimes when we look at algebraic expressions, the moment we see letters and numbers, we already say it's an equation, even if there's no equal sign. Okay, so this is only an algebraic expression, okay, but it's not necessarily an equation. Okay, now let's look at solving. Okay, let's proceed to solving. So how do we solve? How to solve equations? First, the most basic idea of equations is that you're trying to maintain a balance. Okay, so you're trying to maintain a balance, and you can imagine an equal sign as the one maintaining the balance. So to maintain a balance, for example, let's look at objects. If I will put an object here and there's no object here, the tendency of our line here will be in this way, right? So to preserve the equality, if you add an object here, you should also add the same object on the other side so that it will maintain the balance. And this basic idea is always applied to equations. Whatever you do, that's why your teacher or teachers normally say, whatever you do on one side, you have to do it on the other side to maintain the balance. Okay. Now let's look at a specific equation. Let's put this here. So suppose we have now, let's start with the basic one. 7x plus 5 is equal to, say, let's make it 16. Or maybe, let's try, let's say 19. Okay, 19 is a good one. So, in equations, we want to find what is that number here, that when you multiply to 7 and you add 5, you get 19. Some people will try to imagine a number, what should I multiply to 7 and then add by 5 equals 19. So they're doing it through trial and error. Now, that's okay, but sometimes it's not the most efficient way. Like you always guess and check if that number will work. So we will be using some rules, what we call, or properties, named as properties of equations. And that's where the balancing idea is applied. Okay, properties of equation or equations. Okay, so we need to solve for x, so we have to isolate the x. Okay, now the first thing that we need to do is to eliminate this plus 5. Okay, and the only way that we can zero out the 5 is if we add the opposite of 5, which is negative 5. Because 5 plus negative 5 is 0. If you're already familiar with adding a negative, that is the same as subtracting the number. Okay? Now, to maintain the balance, so I want to eliminate the 5. So I will subtract 5 on this side. Again, whatever we do on one side, we have to do it on the other side. So I have to subtract 5 as well on the other side. Can you follow? Can you follow? So 7x plus 5 minus 5 is equal to 19 minus 5. Subtract 5, subtract 5. Balance, right? So 5 minus 5 is 0. So the left side is just 7x. And 19 minus 5 is equal to 14. Okay? And then we need to eliminate 7. So we divide by 7 and then we divide by 7. You see, to maintain the balance, I'm dividing by 7 on the left side. So I should divide by 7 on the other side. So this will become, what is 7x over 7?
X.
X. or 1x, and 14 divided by 7 is
7.
2. Okay, so it's like 7 times 2 is 14, so 14 over 7 is 2. So if we check, let's go back to our initial problem. 7x plus 5 is equal to 19. We said the answer is 2. So when we check, is 7 times 2 plus 5 equals 19. 7 times 2 is 14 plus 5 is 19. So that means our answer is correct. So this is the basic solving of equations. Now in junior high 7, you're doing a little more advanced type because there are new rules to be applied. So let's make it a bit harder, but not that hard. So suppose I have 2 and then 7x minus 2 equals 24. Do you know what to do with this one first? You have an idea? So it's a bit different to the one I showed, but we can actually make it similar to the first example. Do you have like any distribute? Okay, so good thing that you know that you can actually distribute in an expression. So if I distribute 2, then what will we have? 14x minus 4 and then equals still the same 24. Okay, so we normally eliminate addition subtraction before the multiplication and division. Okay, I have minus 4, so what do you think should I do here? I need to make this 0. What should I add or subtract so that this will become 0? If we try to look at our example a while ago, so we have this. What did we do to make the 5 0? We added what? The opposite, negative 5. Okay, but in our example right now, it's a minus 4. So what should I do on both sides? What should I add or subtract here on the left side so that we can 0 out the minus 4? Oh, if I put minus 4 and minus 4, minus 4 minus 4 is negative 8 and not 0. So something is wrong. Do you think it's minus 4? What should be added or subtracted? Given that this is already minus 4, think of the opposite. So if it's minus 4, you don't do minus 4. Minus 4 is not the opposite. What is opposite? Plus 4. Okay, so plus 4 and then plus 4. That way, this will become 0. And on the left side, you have 14x. But what about the other side? 24 plus 4. 28. And then, you're familiar with the step here. What should I do here? Divide by
4.
Why 4? What do we need to get? We need x. And there's a 14. So what should I divide 14x? To solve for x. 14. Okay. And then what about for the 28? 14 also. So no more. 14. What is 28 divided by 14? What's 28 divided by 14? You do reverse check.
14.
Yeah, 28 divided, no, that's 28 minus 14. So how many 14s can you create? How many 14s can you create from 28? How many 14s are there in the 28? If I subtract 14, what's left? Hmm. And there are many ways how to check. 28 divided by 14 is like 14 times something equals 28. What should be the answer here? 28 divided by 14. 2, right? Okay, so 2. So x is equal to 2. Then we check again. Is our answer correct? The good thing about equation is that you can actually check if your answer is correct. So 2 times 7 times 2 minus 2 is equal to 24. So question mark, is it true? Now don't get the mistake of subtracting 2 immediately, huh? So PEMDAS, so 7 times 2 is 14, and then 14 minus 2 is 12. 12 times 2 is 24, so it's correct. Okay, so the answer is, so we can conclude x must be equal to 2. Okay, so that's our basic example for solving equations.